Good afternoon, and welcome to our Veterans Day program. We'd like to introduce each of our veterans individually this year. As a way of acknowledging their service to our country, we ask that you stand. Our first veteran we are leaving a seat open for, his name is Oscar Chasteen. Mr. Chasteen died in 2012. He was in the Army and he left high school to serve in 1943. You'll hear more about why we are remembering him today. Next, Gaylord Bach was in the Army from 1945 through 1946. He is a lifetime resident of Woodmore, and he has had children, grandchildren, and great-grandchildren attend our school. Next, Skip Galdine. He was in the United States Navy from 1961 until 1965. He is Maddie Galdine's grandfather. Next, Donald Avers. He was in the Army from 1945 until 1946. He is Mrs. Went's father.
Next we have R.J. Moulter. He served in the Army from 1952 to 1953 and has a son and 2 grandchildren that graduated from Woodmore. Next is Mike O'Connor. He served in the U.S. Navy from 1961 to 1964. His wife is a retired teacher, and he has 3 children and 2 grandchildren that graduated from Woodmore. Next is Ryer Smith. He was part of the U.S. Marine Corps for 5 years, and he has grandchildren that went to Woodmore. Next we have Bill Obermeyer, who served in the U.S. Air Force for 3 years. He graduated from Woodville in the class of 1954.
Next is Kermit Cook. He served in the Army for 2 years and has 2 daughters that graduated from Woodmore. Next is David Hummel, who served in the U.S. Army for 4 years and is a Woodville High School graduate. Next is Jeremy Tingley Sr., who served in the U.S. Army for 13 years, a 1999 graduate, and the father of Jeremy Tingley, Jr. Next is Stephen Small Sr., who served in the Navy for 6 years, 2 of them active and 4 reserve, and grandson is Josh Small.
Next, Don Alter was in the Navy for 6 years aboard the USS South Carolina. He has a granddaughter who is currently in the 3rd grade at Woodmore Elementary. Next, Sergeant Michael Marino was a member of the Army National Guard for 8 years. He is a coach here at Woodmore, and he is Alex's dad. Next is our guest speaker, Devontae Askew, who is in the United States Marine Corps for 6 years. He is a 2010 Woodmore graduate. Myron Giesler was in the Army from 1951 until 1952, and he graduated from Woodmore in 1946.
Next we have Robert Schaefer, who was in the Army from 1965 to 1967. He was a bus driver, his wife, a long resident of our community, 2 daughters and 1 grandson. Next is Earl Avers. He was in the Army for 21 months, and he graduated in the class of 1946. Next we have Thomas Sevitz, who was in the Army from 1952 to 1956. And he graduated from Woodville in 1956. He has twin granddaughters, Olivia and Scarlett Sevitz, that are both seniors. Next is Dennis Steinball from the U.S. Air Force, who was in from 1965 to 1969, and he's an alumni.
No, I married an alum.
Oh, sorry. Very well. Next is David Hammer, who served in the U.S. Air Force for 4 years, between 2004 and 2008. Graduated in 2004. Kenneth Hines served in the Air Force between 1951 and 1955. He graduated in 1948 from Elmore. Has 2 grandsons, Bryce Davis and Josh Keynote. Tom Bachrader served in the Navy for 2 years and is also Mr. Hemminger's grandfather. William Sork served in the Army for 2 years.
Next, Gary Worthington was in the Army for 3 years, and he is a 1966 Elmore graduate. John Class was in the United States Navy Submarine Service from 1968 until 1988, and he is the commander of the American Legion Post 279. Bill Kiefer was in the Army for 12 years, and he is a graduate and the stepdad of Jeremy Schiavone. Don Ralston was in the United States Navy from 1965 until 1969 and is Mrs. Saffron's dad.
Next we have William Treat, who was in the U.S. Navy for 22 years, and he is the father of Liam and Aiden Treat. Next we have David Adams, who served in the Army from 2010 to 2014, and he is Mr. Adams' son. Next we have Richard Adams, who served in the Navy from 1947 to 1951, and he's the father of Mr. Adams. And last we have Deborah Jordan Bach, who served in the Army from 1978 to 1986. She graduated in 1974, and her daughter graduated in 2002.
Please give them a warm round of applause. Thank you. You may be seated. We will begin our ceremony today with a brief video clip honoring our American soldiers.
Staff, students, community members, and most importantly, our veterans. Thank you for taking time today to celebrate with us and honor all of our veterans, as well as our active duty servicemen and women. Along with our honored veterans, I'd like to introduce a few people and recognize those that made this happen today. First, I'd like to thank Ms. Curtis and her advanced placement American history students for all their work in organizing this assembly and the celebration today. We do have some board members with us, Ms. Corinna Bench, Ms. Kara Brown, I know Sean Reiser is here, oh, he's down here, Jay Lefevre, our superintendent, Jamie Pearson, our treasurer. Thank you for taking time out of your schedules today to be with us. To our veterans that served during wartime and time of peace, thank you for fighting for us. Now it's my pleasure to introduce Ken Emrine and the Woodmore Jazz Band as they play America the Beautiful.
The presentation of colors is a ceremony presenting or retiring a flag. The colors refer to the United States flag. The American Legion Color Guard will present and retire the colors. Proper respect should be given to the colors at all times during the ceremony. Please rise for the presentation of the colors, followed by
Up time, hook, detail, hook, there, post colors, present, hook, what, hook.
I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. You may be seated.
Then, take forward, step, step, right.
When Francis Scott Key wrote the Star-Spangled Banner almost 200 years ago, he called America the land of the free and the home of the brave. Those words are true today as they were then. Throughout this nation's history, America's soldiers, sailors, airmen, Marines, and Coast Guardsmen have bravely answered the call to defend our freedom, to aid our friends and allies, and to turn back aggressors. We can never fully repay our debt of gratitude to the more than 650,000 American service members who died in battle, or the 1.4 million who were wounded. We can, however, recognize and thank the 22 million veterans still living today. These words are inscribed on the Korean War Memorial in Washington, D.C. Our nation honors her sons and daughters who answered the call to defend the country they never knew and a people they never met.
Those words apply equally to many of our World War II, Vietnam War, Gulf War, and the War on Terror veterans as well. They apply to today's active duty service members, tomorrow's veterans, who are helping to maintain peace throughout the world. Today, it is our privilege to say thank you to all of America's veterans, to let them know that we appreciate them for their service and honor them for their sacrifices. The price of freedom is high. We cannot afford to forget those willing to pay it. Today, we celebrate America's veterans for keeping this nation the land of the free and the home of the brave.
World War I, known at the time as the Great War, officially ended when the Treaty of Versailles was signed on June 28, 1919, in the Palace of Versailles, outside the town of Versailles, France. However, fighting ceased 7 months earlier when an armistice, or temporary cessation of hostilities, between the Allied nations and Germany went into effect on the 11th hour of the 11th day of the 11th month. For that reason, November 11, 1918, is generally regarded as the end of the war to end all wars.
Veterans Day continues to be observed on November 11th, regardless of what day of the week on which it falls. The restoration of the observance of Veterans Day to November 11th not only preserves the historical significance of the date, but helps focus attention on the important purpose of Veterans Day, a celebration to honor Americans' veterans for their patriotism, love of the country, and willingness to serve and sacrifice for the common good. Today, we have approximately 22 million veterans who have courageously served our country. Many of the brave men and women took part in World War II, the Korean War, the war in Vietnam, the Gulf War, and the ongoing war on terror. Thank you, veterans. Next, Mrs. Nitz and the men's chorus will perform Tell My Father with soloist Emily Weger.
Sergeant Devante Askew is a 2010 graduate of Woodmore High School. He enlisted in the United States Marine Corps and was stationed in Washington, D.C. He was then with Guard Company and moved to the Presidential Camp David Retreat, where he was part of the Presidential Guard. Sergeant Askew's commendations are vast. He was a reactionary force team leader, a squad leader, and a platoon sergeant, where he was in charge of 78 Marines. In addition, he was accepted into the Scout Sniper Platoon, a position he held for 17 months. Sergeant Askew has received the Presidential Support Badge, the National Defense Medal, the Global War on Terrorism Medal, and the Good Conduct Medal. He also received the Sea Service Medal and the Korean Defense Service Medal, both of which he received twice. Sergeant Askew obtained his black belt in Marine Corps martial arts program and went on to become a martial arts instructor. He left active duty as a sergeant of the United States Marine Corps. Currently, he is in the Marine Active Reserves with the 3rd Battalion, 25th Marines in Columbus as a squad leader. Please help me in giving a warm welcome to Woodmore's own Sergeant Devante Askew.
All right, before I go ahead and deliver my speech, please join me in a moment of silence for our country's POWs, MIAs, and the brave men and women who are currently serving in harm's way. All right, thank you. So, this is probably the biggest group that I've ever had to talk to, and I'll tell you what, after all my experiences in the last 6 years in the Marine Corps, never thought I was going to be terrified to talk to a bunch of high schoolers. So, you got to bear with me now, all right? I'm better at kicking doors in than actually talking to a vast group of people. All right, so today on Veterans Day, we celebrate and honor the men and women who, in every war since the country began, has given testimony of their loyalty to our country and in our own great courage. Just as Memorial Day is recognized those who paid the ultimate sacrifice in our country, Veterans Day is about reflection and time to show appreciation or merely say thank you to those who have gone before us. So I ask you, who has gone before us? In the United States, there are nearly 22 million living veterans. In the state of Ohio alone, there are approximately 41,778 World War II veterans, 72,535 Korean veterans, 293,927 Vietnam veterans, 237,689 Persian Gulf to present day veterans, 236,591 peacetime veterans, to bring us to a total of 866,481. Here in Ottawa County alone, there's 3,486, and in Sandusky, there's 4,694. So as the numbers show, not only is our country embedded with veterans, but the great state of Ohio is just shy of 1 million American heroes. Almost 8,000 of which is our own family, friends, and neighbors. So what is a veteran? A veteran is a man or a woman who raised their hand to serve honorably and wore the cloth of this great nation. A veteran, what I want to focus on is the question, who is that veteran? A veteran is that silent war hero that is curled up under a bridge with bags on their feet to keep warm but will still not ask for help. A veteran is that D-Day survivor that spends his days in a wheelchair staring out the window of a room in the nursing home watching the invasion over and over. And when you call him a hero, he responds, the real heroes didn't make it off the beach. A veteran is that 19-year-old young woman with shrapnel embedded in her face, hoping that people won't stare at her as she walks down the halls of the university, trying to fit in. A veteran is that school teacher who flies the American flag in the classroom, honoring his comrades who didn't make it home. These are the true heroes, the most common people, who, without their uniform to distinguish themselves away from everyone else, they look. Oh, shit, there we go. My bad. All right, however, behind their face and in their heart is a story that most likely has gone untold or unheard. Most of us believe that their contributions were small, just a part of our duty. But it is our individual efforts that have combined into a mighty force for freedom. So I ask you again, who is that veteran? A veteran is one who spent countless holidays away from his family. A veteran is one who went off to serve when his best friends went off to college. A veteran is that one who's trying to make a relationship with their niece because they haven't seen them in 2 years, or for 2 years, and they treat you like you're a stranger. A veteran is that guy or that person who goes out and gone through a lot of stuff with a best friend, and he's no longer here with them. That veteran I'm speaking of is myself. I look back on my career and I look at all the trials and many who have sacrificed, and it's hard for me to accept that I've made any sacrifices. A little bit about myself, my mother was in for 23 years. I'm a military brat. Since the day I was born, I already knew I was going to go in the military. And I knew all the, everything that was going to come with going in the military. I've seen, countless of my friends went from elementary all the way through high school, whose fathers or mothers went off to war and never came back. I've lived numerous days where my mother would she probably missed like 6 years of my 6 birthdays in a row. My freshman year of high school, my mother got deployed again, and it was my older sister and I, the ones who were raising the house while we had a little kindergartner, Joey Askew, some of you guys know her, while we're sitting there raising her. I already knew all the things I was going to get myself into as I joined. But honestly, it's one of those things where we do it for you guys. Because honestly, if it wasn't for you, we wouldn't be sitting there pushing through and doing the things that we do. If I would have known what I would have endured in my personal life before I packed my ruck to head off to the unknown, I would have still left, as well as my buddies out in the military as well. And that is our deep love for our country, our fellow countrymen, and children of America. Our service is bigger than ourselves. Not every American can truly understand that what our troops endure. Many veterans come home to empty houses. Many veterans come home unemployed. Many veterans come home a different person, matured beyond their years. Many combat veterans are secluded from society and deal with their demons from war. All right, I'd like to go on and share a poem with you written by a junior high school student. All right, this poem humbles me, as the words reflect not a young girl, but a grateful American. To be called Because of You, Unknown Soldier by Courtney Tanaba. Because of you, I'm here. Because of you, I am able to live freely. Yet I do not know you. I would have not done anything for you. But there you stand, ready to fight. And there you are, prepared to die for me. You fought before, you'll fight again. For someone you don't know. So thank you, unknown soldier, fighting for me. I'm here because of you, and I owe you my future. Today we celebrate Veterans Day. We celebrate the men and women who stood ready to fight. And it's because of you we are humbled and grateful. And today, in a world tormented by tension and conflict, in an age that threatens the survival of freedom, we must honor those who continue to make our freedom possible, the men and women who currently wear the cloth of this great nation. It is the selflessness and dedication of the American men and women serving in the ranks today that continue to secure the freedom upon which this great country was founded. Every generation of Americans owe a debt of gratitude to our soldiers, sailors, airmen, and Marines who have set aside their personal pursuits and answered the call of duty. They are today's guardians of freedom and tomorrow's veterans. In closing, I would like to share one of my favorite quotes by Elmore Davis. This will remain the land of the free only so long as it's home of the brave. Most brave are not interested in being honored as they are in honoring the values or for which they are given so much of the body, soul, and values such as honor, courage, commitment, service to the country and in country. Our sacrifices are truly essential to the freedom of Americans. However, there is no bottom line for our sacrifices. When we raise our hands to serve this great country, we sign a blank check to all of you, payable with our lives. So you know every day you live free, you're withdrawing from the account that is deposited our lives in. When you leave here today, you thank a veteran for their services. Please know it is because of you we have served. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sergeant Askew. On December 15, 1944, the world lost a famous band leader known for his popular big band jazz of the 1930s and into World War II. Major Glenn Miller, leader of the Army Air Force Band, joined the armed forces as a volunteer and conducted performances for the troops to aid in morale. He was being flown from England to France in preparation for performances in Europe when his plane disappeared and was presumed to have crashed. Our Woodmore Jazz Band, under the direction of Mr. Ken Emmerine, would like to present the tune American Patrol, which was performed by Glenn Miller's band and recalls the sound of patriotic jazz music of the Second World War.
Thank you, Mr. Elmore and the Jazz Band. Another fantastic piece. Now we're at the part of the ceremony that I've been waiting for quite a long time. We're going to honor some special guests. But before I do that, I want to talk about a couple of things. We use the word sacrifice. It's a very common word right now, but it feels really misused. We talk about things like the sacrifices that we make. Well, I'm going to sacrifice $5 for coffee in the morning because I need to really save that money. Or I'm going to sacrifice my time so I can complete this project. The gentlemen we're about to recognize truly made the ultimate sacrifice. They left school before graduation in order to serve and protect this great country. Well, today, we're here to honor that sacrifice. Today, we'll be recognizing and graduating 4 gentlemen that paid the ultimate price and left school before graduation. Our first honoree, unfortunately, has passed away, but we are going to honor him anyway. Before I make the announcements, I'd like to tell you today each honoree will receive their honor cords that we give all of our military graduates, a Woodmore High School diploma, and a commendation letter signed by the Governor and Lieutenant Governor of the state of Ohio. On a side note, I'd like to thank Jason Miller of Jostens for donating the honor cords, the diplomas, the caps, and gowns. Before I begin the presentation, I'd also like to thank the private donor that generously funded our military veterans wall located between the lobby and the cafeteria. By gathering the information, that's how we were able to recognize that some of our alumni went and served before graduating. And as I said, today we're going to fix that. Now let's begin. In seat number 1, which was left empty, we were recognizing Oscar Chastain. Oscar would have been a 1943 graduate when he left school to serve in the Army. Unfortunately, his wife Winnie was not able to attend today, but we will make sure that she gets the diploma and the commendation letter as well. Our second honored guest is Mr. Gaylord Bob. Over here. Mrs. Curtis will give him his honor cords. Mrs. Brown, Mr. Reiser will provide him with his high school diploma, as well as that commendation letter. Okay, now, Skip Building, stand up here. We're going to put you in a gown. You got your honor cord. You're going to receive your high school diploma. As was stated earlier, Skip was in the Navy. He served from 1961 to 1965. He's the grandfather of Maggie Geldine and Matt. as well as the father-in-law of Jenny Gelby, our secretary. And our fourth honoree is Mr. Donald Davis. Donald, stay up. Mr. Avers also served in the Army from 1945 to 1946. Again, left school to go serve his country. And now, he would have been a graduate of the Elmore High School. Now he's a graduate of Woodmore High School, class of 2016. And I'll have Olivia Sevitz and Janelle Roots come to the stage.
Of all the military bugle calls, none is so easily recognized or more apt to render emotion than the call of taps. The melody is both eloquent and haunting, and the history of its origin is interesting and somewhat clouded in controversy. The use of taps is unique with the United States military, since the call is sounded at funerals, wreath laying, and memorial services. Taps went on from its origin as an alternative to lights out, to become not only a signal that the day was done, but also to say goodbye to a fallen comrade. Please join me in a moment of silence.
Work time. Good. Detail. Hold. Bam. Peace. Recover the colors. Right. Hey. Forward. Huh.
Thank you. You may be seated. As we wrap up today's ceremony, I just want to thank our veterans for attending today. But more importantly, I want to thank them for their sacrifice in putting this great country in front of their own personal wants and needs. The sacrifice that all the members of our armed forces make can never be repaid financially, but must be paid forward by each generation in order for this great country to continue to be the land of the free and home of the brave. It is my honor that Woodmore local schools and the students and staff say thank you for your service, your pride in our country, and your belief in freedom, no matter what the cost. Veterans are always welcomed at Woodmore High School. As we conclude, today's assembly, we do have just a few minutes left, students, so as we have done in the past, if you would like to take a few minutes and show your gratitude to these fine men and ladies, we have space and seats out so you'll be able to get in between them and thank them and just give them a nice word of so at this time, we will conclude the ceremony, and then our students, if you want to take a couple minutes to talk to our veterans, please do so. We will ring the bell and release you at the appropriate time. Thank you to everybody for attending.